usually when we start having these types of conversations, we love to start kind of at the beginning, what your life looked like before you officially got into real estate, and kind of what your background was leading up to it, and then what kind of made you want to go this direction.
Yeah, no, I mean, I knew I was good at sales. I wanted to get into sales. I'd gone on a Mormon mission and enjoyed talking to people, right?
Yeah.
And I got home, and really all I wanted to do was to be a waiter or like a server, and nobody would hire me because I wouldn't work Sundays. And so I ended up selling meat door to door. Just took this sales job, and I remember, my first day on the doors, I made like $250 hawking steak and chicken.
You were how old at this time?
21.
Okay, yeah,
just off my mission.
Yeah, fresh.
And it changed my whole world because I realized very quickly, like, oh my gosh, my worst case scenario is I'm going to be able to make 6 figures selling meat door to door.
Yeah.
Because when you're a kid, you want to be rich. When you're older, you want to have money, but you don't know how it's going to happen.
Did you have grand aspirations as a kid? Like, did you have like some goal in mind? Like, if I could be a lawyer, if I could be an astronaut?
I mean, not really. I think it was like any kid. I wanted to be like an army sniper. I wanted to be a lawyer. Like all jobs that I like, knowing myself now, I would have been horrible at, right? Can you imagine me trying to be a sniper holding still for like
How old were you when you realized that was probably out of the picture?
I'm like 37.
There's still thoughts in
I'm
there.
just kidding.
I still got it.
It was probably lasted like a month, but I think I watched the movie Clear and Present Danger, and I just thought that was a cool gig.
Oh, I'm sure Top Gun Maverick just inspired a whole generation of kids coming up that are going to want to
one of my best
right?
friends in the world, he joined the military to be a helicopter pilot. And when we asked him why he chose to do it, he said he was inspired by the movie Black Hawk Down. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but they all die.
That does not end in a way that says, I want to be a helicopter pilot professionally.
Yeah, it's like, I was like, wow. It's like, I don't know if that's the message I took away from it.
Like, did you watch the whole thing? Like, did you see how that one ended? Like,
yeah, kind of cool. But he's doing the thing, man. He's like a badass special forces helicopter.
Good for him.
Gunner, yeah.
Yeah. So you can only talk so much, right? Like, good for him. Like, that's impressive.
I know.
So you knew that you were good at sales. You sold and like, okay, I can at least, like, if this is my new worst case scenario, you almost raised what your benchmark, like what your minimum of life now was, right? Once you're like, okay, if I could do $250 a day, I'm good.
Well, no, it was kind of more just like, oh my gosh, that's my worst case scenario, because again, like when you're a kid, you want to be rich, but you don't know if it's going to happen. I didn't have these grand aspirations. I just knew I wanted to have money. I remember my parents used to fight all the time about money. I'd sit at the bottom of the stairs and listen to them. So to me,
what did your dad do?
He sold diesel truck insurance and he sold real estate. My mom was a school teacher, but I remember like thinking if I have money, then I won't have problems and I won't be able to, I won't have family problems. And so for me, it was more about like, if I can get rich, then I don't have to worry about fighting in the family.
All of the fights that your parents had would have been alleviated if they had more money. Yeah.
And so, and that's.
Do you still believe that?
No, but I do think that insurance shit can help a lot.
No, and
money just amplifies whatever you're already doing, right? Wherever you're already at.
Yeah, like my wife and I, for the very first year that we got married was the first year. Second year I made 6 figures, right? So it was also at the same time we had to deal with newlywed stuff, right? First year of marriage, adding someone to your life is just a complete change. And then her dad passed away as well, just a handful of weeks before our wedding. So there was a lot of things that were thrown into it, and not having to stress about money, I think, was a huge advantage, right? So you're in sales, you're selling meat, day one, crushing it, and you're like, okay, the sales world, at least something within sales is the world for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what progressed to real estate?
Well, I was just always intrigued by it from an investing standpoint. I started listening to some books on tape that my buddy Clint had given me. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Some guys that aren't around anymore, Carlton Sheets and Robert G. Allen. And everything just, to me, was like, okay, that's how you get wealthy, is to invest in real estate. So I really got my license to start out just to do my own stuff. But I had this time frame with nothing to do. And so I just started selling, and after a couple of months, I found a real estate mentor coach, Mike Ferry. And my first 6 months working with Mike Ferry's organization, I sold over 55 houses, and it was just like off to the races.
So the majority of agents, when they get into their first year, don't sell 55 houses. What was that first year like for you?
I don't think any.
That
I know of.
People that start at a builder in their first year,
my first 6 months, I sold like 4 or 5 homes. I was just kind of struggling through it. And then
friends, family, like people around.
Just a couple deals. Yeah. Fall in your lap. One was a brother and stuff like that. But then I hired that coach, and I learned what to say and how to say it. And then
you hired a coach at 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's also very unconventional, I would say. What was it that you're like, okay, you know what, real estate is? Were you selling meat at the time? Like,
Well, it was, yeah.
the majority of people don't invest in a coach at 6 months. So what did you see that you're like, okay, I think this is the direction, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was frustrated. I didn't know how to do real estate, and my broker wasn't really teaching me. And I was doing a TV show at the same time. I was doing my meat company at the same time, and I was trying to figure out which direction to go if I was even going to stay in real estate. And I went to a seminar, and at the seminar, they taught us what to say and how to say it, and then they gave us a homework assignment to go home and do it, and I did it, and it worked. And, the first night I went home from this seminar, it was a 3-day seminar. The first night I went home and I got 2 leads. I was like, wow, this works. I did the next night, got 2 more leads. And it was like, I remember it was $1,000 a month, which for me at the time was just astronomical. It was what my parents were paying on their mortgage. And, but after the 3rd day, I just went up to the guy giving the seminar. And I was like, I need to be a part of this. I don't have any money yet. You got to hold my credit card info, but I'm in. And I committed to 12 months. And, I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to do it full board and not hold anything back. And so that's what I did. And so, my first 2 months, each of the first 2 months that I was in coaching and doing exactly what they told me, I was working 80 hours a week. I was prospecting probably 60, 70 calls a day. But I think I put 30 and 27 homes under contract in my first 2 months.
The majority of agents, I think the average is 8 a year still, 8 to 12
transactions.
transactions.
Full-time agents, 8 to 12 a year.
Yeah, so to still put that into perspective, everybody, that is a crazy number. Obviously, coaching is some of it, but you obviously had to put in the work as well, right? Busy, I'm guessing. Still found time though to do what was important, right?
Yeah, my theory my first 4 or 5 years as a real estate agent was if I get up and if I own the day from 8 o'clock a.m. to 11 a.m., which is making my prospecting calls, everything else takes care of itself. And it really did. If I was willing to make those calls every day, 30 calls every single day. I didn't miss for 5 years. And
to friends, family, who?
Friends, family, for sell by owners, expired listings, whoever. But I was just calling 30 contacts a day. I'd have 30 phone conversations from 8 to 11. As long as I did that, I had an hour of lead follow-up I had to do every day because I had so many leads that I was following back up with. I had 2 to 3 hours of appointments to go on every single day, and then I had 2 or 3 hours of showing homes every day. And so everything else was just busy work because of those 3 hours every morning. And I treated those 3 hours of prospecting like sacred time. I remember I was dating a girl one time, and she's like, hey, my car broke down. I need help. And I was like, oh, sorry, I'm making my calls. And she's like,
shouldn't have broke down between the hours of 8 and 11.
Yeah, no. And she literally was so mad at me. And she's like, well, what am I supposed to do? I said, I can come pick you up when I'm done, but I'm making my calls right now. And that's how serious I took it.
What if you had, because you hear people, and I think there's a lot of ups and downs in real estate. And I think it's because a lot of people don't set their schedule like what you did. And there are certain non-negotiables, but as soon as an appointment would call, right? As soon as a listing presentation would call at 9:30 and say, hey, can you be here in 30 minutes? They immediately drop what they're doing and they go, would anything interrupt that? Would you schedule, or was that the completely sacred time?
Yeah, the secret to what I was doing is I treated prospecting time like a listing appointment.
Okay.
Because if you're in the middle of a listing appointment, you wouldn't drop what you were doing.
No.
And that's how I treated prospecting.
But I think that there's a lot of people that's the result of the action, and they prioritize the result more than they do the action.
Yeah,
they chase that, right?
I just kind of had this theory, there's nothing urgent before noon. There's just not. There's not, and only if you make it urgent. And so as long as I did those calls, there was days where if I had something in the morning, occasionally, whatever it might be, then I had to make my calls at night, and that got harder because at night there are things that come up that you need to be available for, But from 8 to 11, there's nothing urgent.
So when did you start? Because you throw these absolutely crazy parties as part of your client appreciation events, right? Mm-hmm. When did those start, and what has kind of the evolution of those been?
Yeah,
because there's a lot of people that don't. Sorry to cut you off. There's a lot of people that once that transaction closes, I think that they're kind of done focusing on that individual, and I think that's kind of when they start really getting to experience who Jimmy Rex is now, right?
Yeah. Well, for me, I got burned out. I was calling those for sale by owners and those leads every single day for 5 years. And I got to this point, Bill Pipes was my coach. I know you've had him on the podcast. And I went to him one day and I said, dude, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm burned out. I'm not having fun. I got into real estate to throw parties, to hang out with my friends, to travel. And I'm not doing any of that. I'm just working my ass off. And especially back then, the market had tanked. And
yeah, how many houses were you selling at the time?
Around 100 a year. Yeah.
You had a team at this point?
Very small.
Okay.
Like me and one other person. but just working like crazy, and ultimately I was burned out. And he said, well, let's change it. Let's refocus on the way that you want to do this. And we decided that I was going to pick a couple hundred people and just spoil the shit out of them. And that's how we were going to get our business. And so I decided, it was a little bit before Gary Vaynerchuk made it famous, but the whole, jab, jab, right hook, where you just give. And, Zig Ziglar's, if you want to get everything you want in life, give enough people what they want. And so I just had this theory, if I was good at throwing parties. That's what I was doing in college anyway. And I'd get it, I'd have a poker night and sell 4 homes from it. So it was kind of like right in front of my eyes. I'm like, shit, man, this is already working. Every time I throw a party or get people together, I end up getting deals from it. So I just decided to go all in on that. And so I decided once a month I'd throw a party. I remember the first time I called the theater. It's pretty common.
Yeah, what did the first one look like?
Well, it's pretty common now that people rent out movie theaters for the movies. But the first time I called the movies,
it had never been done before.
Never been done. They were like, well, you can't rent out the whole theater. I'm like, well, why not? And they're like,
so you have to be able to buy all the tickets somehow, right?
Yeah. I said, just sell me every ticket. Literally, I taught them how to do it the first time. And I was the first one doing that for years. And then do
you remember how much that cost?
I don't know. Whatever.
Because it doesn't matter, right? Yeah. Like what do you think it was that made you feel that comfortable fronting that money? There's a lot of people that say like they want to see the investment return before they're actually, I think, willing to put up the money. What do you think it was that let you say, okay, I'm going to write a check for my business right now and reinvest it back into me?
Well, I mean, you look at any major company and look at their marketing budgets. You know what I mean? Like if you want to have a real company, you've got to spend money to make money. But I also didn't want to just throw money. I'd thrown money when I was early in the business. I was trying everything. I threw a lot of money at bad ideas. And so I got really tight on my budget because you had to when the market collapsed. Yeah. But ultimately I said, okay, I said, worst case scenario, I'm having a hell of a fun night with my friends. Like I wanted to throw a
like we're going to go out like crazy.
Like anyway, I wanted to throw a giant firework party. Anyway, I wanted to do a giant Easter egg hunt, or I wanted to do a big party for Thanksgiving or whatever it might be, right? And so I just decided I'm going to throw these parties. And it was funny because a loan officer hit me up one time and they're like, hey, we want to partner on these parties you throw. We've heard that you throw the most epic parties. How do you track how many deals you get from it? And I said, well, I don't. I don't know how to track that. And they said, well, we would have to know that we're getting the right return. And it was like this lady, I remember, and I was like, well, I don't talk about business at my parties. I throw the parties and the business rolls in. I don't know what to tell you. I don't have an Excel spreadsheet to show you exactly what your
because you're not nickel and diming your event, right? You're not going in.
No, I literally, if people talk to me about business at the event, I say, hey, I'll give you a call tomorrow, but tonight just have fun. And anyways, I ended up telling her like, look, we're not a good fit because
from that alone.
Yeah.
From that approach alone of
100%.
I'm going to nickel and dime to see exactly how many
deals.
That
was just like, dude, if you're not, either you trust me or you don't. Like, I'm doing something right for hell's sakes. I'm the #1 agent in the county, and this is
so
how
who
I
finally
do it.
because you guys a lender is still a part.
Well, I had a lot of lenders that wanted my business.
That's what I was gonna say. How have you kind of sorted through that to figure out somebody to kind of build your business with?
I think the most important was just people I want to hang out with. And then secondly was like I just told them, I said, you're going to take care of my clients, #1. They're going to get the best deals. They're going to get the best service. You're going to answer their phone calls, and you're going to make sure they understand what's going on. And so I found a guy that, Steve DeYoung, that really bent over backwards to make sure my clients were comfortable. And so he and I, ever since, we've been going on 12 years probably, doing all these events together where he pays half of every event I do.
Good for him.
Yeah.
And that's how you can create value for agents. It's not necessarily bringing a deal. It's not necessarily
it's
going to lunch. It's not golfing. It's not all these different things that get tried, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of agents or lenders that they want to like do all these things. And it's like, ultimately, I always said the same thing. I'm like, bring me a deal and I'll give you back one, and we can see if we can work together. And there's a few other agents that did some things well. There's a second agent that I use on some stuff. And like when the Indians made the World Series back in 2016, he's like, dude, let me take you to games 1 and 2. I want to get to know you. And I was like, all right, this guy knows what to get a yes to, And I said, I'll go with you, but I'm already planning on going and I want to sit in the front row. That's what I was going to do. So if you're willing to pay for front row tickets, I'll go with you. He's like, I'm in, dude. And we've done, a lot of
But he knew how to get a yes,
He's
right?
made multiple 6 figures from deals that we've done and stuff. But yeah, it's the same thing with like dating. I tell guys, I'm like, know what you're going to get a yes to. If you're asking out your dream girl, you probably shouldn't take her out to the movies. You better
find
have
something
better
to yes
do.
to.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And it's kind of the principle of life. And so, but ultimately, just working with people that do a great job and make sure that my life needs to be easier because you're in it. Like if I'm getting calls. And I mean, I remember, when I was earlier on in my career and you got a buddy and he's like, hey, give my buddy a deal. He's a loan officer. And, I remember I did it one time and the guy wouldn't return my calls for 2 days. And he hit me back, and I was just like, you're done. I've already moved the file to somebody else. And years later, he's like, I'm so sorry, man. I was on drugs. And I'm like, all good, dude. And he's like, I'm clean now. I'm like, hey, congratulations. He's like, I'd love to try another deal. I was like, absolutely not. Like,
No.
We will never do another deal. In fact, if somebody sends me an offer and you're the agent, I will make them change it to a new loan officer if I want them to take it under contract. I was like,
because I know what your approach to the business is.
It's like, I'm glad you're no longer on drugs, and we're never going to do business.
I want to go back to what did the first event that you said? It was a movie theater rental.
Yep.
You had how many people show up to the first one? Do you remember?
I did a
Ballpark.
smaller theater, it was like 120.
Okay, and now you rent entire water parks. You have how many people come out?
A couple thousand.
What's the most you've ever spent on one? Are you allowed to say?
On an event?
Yeah, on a client appreciation event.
Half of 75,000.
What was it? Was it the fireworks show?
Fireworks show, yeah.
For anybody that doesn't know, Jimmy throws the most badass. Is the largest private fireworks show in the state of Utah, correct?
Yeah, probably in the country.
God, good for you. And it's $50,000. That's what it costs.
More or less.
No, but like if you want to spoil your people, I mean that's what it actually has to look like, right?
Yeah.
So now you've been an agent for how long?
17 years.
At what point did you start to implement content creation into your business? We were talking a little bit about it with the podcast, but I think that this is another one that agents are dying to know, because I think that you, in addition to taking care of your people, you also did a great job of staying in front of them outside of just the once a month client appreciation events and doing it in an organic way, right?
Yeah, I didn't take that real serious till about 5 or 6 years ago. I had some influencer friends that were just making a fortune off of content creation. Garrett G, the Bucket List family, Charlie, Jordan, they were a couple of the first early ones. I had a conversation with Charlie. She was living in my house for a little bit. Her boyfriend at the time, she's got, 5 million
She has her own
followers
brand now.
Yeah,
she is her
ginormous.
own person.
But even back then, she had 250,000 followers, and she was making $40,000 a week, posting a couple times, and I was like, wait, what? How much money are you making? And really just opened my eyes, and so that's when I started taking it serious. She and Garrett are the two that really taught me how to do it and how to get it going. So it was like 5-6 years ago.
What did it look like at first for you? Like, what were you? There's a lot of people that I think when they're trying to figure out, okay, what portions of my brand do I want to show off? How did you go about deciding where to start with content creation?
Well, again, Charlie taught me a couple things. Like, basically, her whole philosophy was like, if you want people to be interested, you got to be interesting. And she would show me pictures that I was posting. She's like, this is not good enough. And she was very blunt. It was hilarious. She was 19, but she's showing me profiles of other guys that were making it and that were building their profile big. And she's like, look how much effort goes into this. Look what they're doing. And I remember at the time being like, well, yeah, but that's all they do.
You're like, I still have a job.
Yeah, but she wasn't wrong. And, so I started really, and then, I've had this theory forever. If you want to be good at real estate, it comes down to two things. People have to trust you.
Yep.
And they have to trust that you know what you're doing. And so I just wanted to build up my Facebook, especially. I did a really good job early on of teaching people about real estate and why they should be investing. So I just
were these clients, or was this just?
No, I would just do a
the
Facebook Live or a video, and I would put it on Facebook and show people how to invest. And and people started being like, "Wow, Jimmy really knows what he's doing here," and that brought me a lot of business. And then with Instagram, I don't think any of us first saw what it is today.
No.
But I really liked building it. I started getting a lot of leads. People would reach out to me about real estate. And so I just kept going with it and just kept trying to be interesting. I had begun traveling all over the world anyways. And so I always had cool stuff to post. I had pictures from all over the world.
You were already living an Instagram life.
Yeah. I was already doing interesting things. Well, and that's one of the things I teach people about building up their social media. When I started teaching courses on it, it was like, hey, this is the perfect excuse to be more interesting. If there are people always I don't know what to post. I'm like, good. Start hiking. Start cooking. Start traveling.
If you don't have anything to post, that's indicative of your life.
Something, that's actually interesting. And it was an excuse for people to, put themselves out there a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's been interesting to watch how you've transitioned from longer Facebook Lives to now you have podcasts. Now you're putting out TikToks. Now you're putting out. Can you summarize kind of what your strategy is right now with, don't give away, because I know you do coaching. I know you do a lot of one-on-one stuff, but just, almost like what you're seeing and what you're kind of putting your time towards, because now it's a big component of what you do, right? It's not just something that you.
Yeah, I mean, I made 7 figures 3 different ways from my Instagram last year alone in one day. Like in one day, I sold 30 condos in Park City. Another day, I sold out my coaching program. It was $900,000 brought in that day. Another day, just through my Instagram, I was able to raise $3 million for a syndicate that I was doing. And so like the value is obviously there through Instagram. And so for me, it's more a matter of just trying to figure out, I mean, the algorithm is changing so much. It's really, I mean, you're competing nowadays. Think about this, like everybody is fighting for the same attention of people, right?
In a shorter, more concise way than ever before, right? The short form content that's taken over.
Whatever you're posting on TikTok or Instagram, you're competing with companies worth $50 million, $5 billion. Like their content is being shown just as much as yours. And so you've got to keep adjusting, keep moving, keep making it fun and interesting. And so, I'm just always trying to figure out to be honest, like what I want to share is the most important thing. Like what interests me.
Because you're doing it for you still,
sure,
right? Still,
yeah. I mean, it's still got to be
your
fun
brand,
to do. And then secondly is what are people interested in? Just listening to people and what do they want to hear about. It's pretty easy. You get feedback, like if nobody's commenting or nobody's watching it, then you're like, all right, well that sucked. Like don't talk about
something.
that. Yeah. But you'll put stuff like, I interviewed Vince Young the other day on my podcast. The guy was one of the top 5 college football players, maybe of all time. And dude, I didn't get much feedback. Like nobody really.
No one cared.
Not really.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, learn your audience, Jimmy.
Yeah, it's not college football kids that watch Texas play USC.
No.
Right?
And then I put, some dating expert, that I met at a conference on there, and it got all sorts of interaction. So I said, okay, that's what people want to hear about. And so,
how do you balance how much real estate stuff to put on? Because there's a lot of people that like they overthink it, right? They say I need to have 2 different pages, I need to have this, I need to have that, and you've done a great job about your brand being who you are and real estate being a portion of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think people confuse what social media is and what it isn't. Like, people need to be interested in what you're posting. Nobody gives a shit about your listing that you're posting about. They just don't. Nobody's going to watch that. Nobody's going to be interested in that. What they want to see is what's interesting. And so I try to just, if I have something interesting with real estate, I'll post it. But if not, then I won't. And
have enough interesting things going on in my life outside of real estate to fill in the rest.
Well, yeah, because again, it's like nobody's, they want to know that you're an expert. And so I show them that and I, teach them how I've become an expert in real estate, but at the same time, try to keep it where they want to watch what I'm doing and they're not sick of it or like, oh, Jimmy, just always talking about his stupid real estate thing.
If you were starting from zero today, 0 following on social media, 0, say you're an established agent, you're selling your houses, you have a small team, where do you start? What would be move number 1, 2, and 3 for you?
Number 1 is I would just get relentless about calling and prospecting for leads and deals. Like I would be so obsessed with making contacts, just like I was when I started. I think it's the only way to start out. And I would video a lot of it. I would record a lot of it. Would you record
cold calls? Would you record just all of it?
Oh, if I had me making my cold calls recorded, it was liquid gold, man. People would have died for that stuff. It was hilarious. But yeah, I'd record some of that. I'd record.
Once again, it's what you were already doing in your business. It's just highlighting. It's just documenting what you were already doing, right? Just the fun aspects of it and being able to make fun of it.
Yeah, exactly right.
So you did your cold calls. What else?
I'd do that, and then I'd make sure that I was relevant. The key to being a new agent is you got to make sure that everybody knows as fast as possible, A, that you're an agent, and B, that you're good at it. And so I would document that and just show people why I'm an expert in real estate. I would go and I would be around. It's never been easier to get around really sharp people.
Yeah.
And so I would do everything I could to get around the smartest, most intelligent humans. I would probably do a real estate podcast like this where I'd interview top agents and rack their brains and try to get information from them. I'd go follow them. I'd find ways to create value for them. And then I'd go be interesting, There's some young dudes that have been, you see them pop up and they're doing like events at these big houses.
Yeah.
It's awesome, stuff like that, where you just get credibility. You can very quickly win people over through social media and show that you're an expert as opposed to before. I remember, dude, I was like 6 years into the business. I'd been realtor of the year. I'd been
sold all the
sales
houses,
team of the year on the Salt Lake Board of Realtors. And I remember I got a for sale by owner list one morning, and it was one of my parents' neighbors that I grew up with. He was in my parents' ward. And I called this guy and I was like, hey man, saw your house for sale. My owner would love to sell it. This is Jimmy. And he's like, oh, I appreciate it, Jimmy. We just, we want to leave it up to one of the experts. And I kind of laughed and I'm like, well, I was one of the 2 finalists for Salesperson of the Year on the Salt Lake Board of Realtors last year. I sold over 90
Does that count?
homes. And he's like, oh, really? I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, well, we just want someone with more experience. And I'm like, well, I sold 187 houses last year. And he just still saw me this like little 10-year-old. Whereas today I wouldn't have that problem because they'd be following you on social media and they'd be like, wow.
They would be aware of what the brand is before you walk in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's been...
I think I probably hadn't heard my name since I was 12.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for me, I started really hammering down on maybe 6 months ago, and I think for me, like the branding that comes along with having social media is what no one's ever going to DM you and be like, thank goodness you just posted a townhome that's a 3-bed, 2.5 bath, because that's exactly what I happen to be in the market for. Right. But when I walk into Starbucks and a real estate agent recognizes me, that's like when this is all worth it, right? And it goes back to showing off what's fun, and then also creating content for I think your target market, right? The people that you want following you, then the people that you enjoy creating that content for. Like you said, like that has to be a big portion of it too,
yeah,
right?
And I mean, you got to do stuff that makes you uncomfortable,
Yeah.
Like I've done so many things over the years where I'm like, we'll see how this goes. And it's risky and and it's like, but I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to try it. I'm willing to put myself out there. I'm willing to spend money on my business. And because of that, I get those rewards where, people are like, they want that because in their own life, they're like, wow, like I wish I dared to go for it like that. I wish I had the balls to do that. And so people really appreciate it when somebody else does it.
Well, so now you've moved on. You're still, don't let me say moved on. You're still actively involved in real estate to an extent, but you have a team that runs a lot of what you're doing. I think there's a lot of people that don't really have an exit strategy when it comes to real estate, and all that they can think of is the next transaction, the next transaction, the next transaction. What advice do you have for somebody that's looking to maybe be able to do a little bit more of what you're done, which is not just... There comes a point where like being busy is the issue, right? Where like all of a sudden all you're doing is real estate, and that doesn't work for people. How have you been able to kind of manage still selling a lot of units, managing a team, and how have you kind of been able to take that next step that the majority of agents aren't able to?
Yeah, I mean, for me, you're surrounding yourself with amazing people. So, for example, I've basically been out of real estate the day-to-day for over a year now. And I've still sold a couple hundred homes in that time myself because my team does it, right? So I get the lead. I send it to one of the agents on my team who are amazing.
You have how many now? Sorry. You got Dale, Ty?
Just 2 main guys on my team, and we have like a bunch of admin help. But basically, any investor, I send to Tyler, and I'm done. Like, my work's done. I got a call from one of my buddies the other day. He's bought 8 homes in the last year. I didn't even know this. I took the first phone call and sent it to Tyler, and him and his team ran with it. But you find people that are great at, fulfillment, are great agents. And I was never greedy, right? Like a lot of agents build a team and they want to take so much money of the other agent that they never keep talent. I always let my guys on my team keep 75 to 100% if it was their own lead. I just needed people to work my leads. Yeah. And so, we split.
And to be incentivized to do that. And totally. To see value in doing that, right?
We split it 50-50 on my deals, and so I'm still getting paid a lot of money, but they're highly motivated to do it, and they're not going anywhere because they're still getting 100% of their own deals on their own leads. And that's what Gary Keller actually said that 2 years ago was a change that Keller Williams said. I went to his event that was for any agents in his, special circle doing over $2 million a year in commissions. And he said that. He said, so many of you are so greedy trying to take all the money from your agents. He said, let them keep 100% of the money on their own deals, and you'll keep them around. And I'd been
just
doing
take
that.
Your portion on your deals. Yeah,
because you just need
which isn't a common strategy in real estate.
No, but
right?
for me, I was like, I just need really good agents that will actually be able to get the deals closed when I send them the lead. Yeah, that was it. That was my whole philosophy. And so now,
which costs money, right? Like having that person responding to your leads, having somebody that actually is capable, like a Tyler Bennett type individual, is not going to do it at a discounted rate.
Every time I talk to somebody, they're like, Chris is so great, Tyler's so great, Dale's great. Like when people work with my team, they don't get handed off. They don't feel like they got a lesser experience.
They don't feel like,
because they didn't.
Just because they're not working with Jimmy is not the end of the road.
Exactly. Yeah. And the only reason I have that talented of people around me is because I always let them get paid a fair amount.
How would you go about hiring? Like if you were starting once again, just you, and you have a whole bunch of deals coming out your ears, How do you go about hiring the first person? Because I think there's a lot of people that wait too long to hire that first person. I know, at least for me, I hired that first person, and it was probably like 90 to 120 days later than I should have hired them. The second person that I hired, I was a lot quicker to pull the trigger because you can kind of see the things that you need a little bit clear. But any advice for anybody that needs that person on their team that just needs to do something to outsource?
It's tricky. It's definitely, hiring is a really difficult process. And, Mike Ferry says for every 35 deals a year you're doing, you should probably have somebody on your team. I think a mistake a lot of people make is hire too quick too, though. You get the wrong person, it's just as bad, and so I think
firing people sucks too.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the key is to get very clear on what you're trying to accomplish. What is the avatar for the role you're trying to fill? My coach, Bill Pipes, used to say, we call it the missing persons report. Like, all right, what exactly is the description of who we need? Who are they? What skills do they have? What are we going to make them do? And then you hire to that position. And what we make the mistake of doing is hiring people that we like or that are like us, and instead of hiring the right person to fill in the job. So, like, for example, when I found Chris that runs my real estate team, he's a homebody. He wants to be home with his kids. He wants to be in the background of everything. If I told him to prospect, he'd probably quit. But the dude is a machine at the back end. And every time I took a deal, I could plop it on his desk.
You knew you had to get it to a certain point. My work
was done.
And Chris has got it from there.
Yeah, and I don't have to wonder what's going on. I don't have to check on dates. I don't have to make sure deadlines are being hit. Like, everything is being done. He does not miss. And so it makes my life really easy because I'm not sitting there worrying about it.
Do you ever hire because you don't like, do you ever offload jobs because you don't like doing something? Like, does that ever cross your mind? Like, I the paperwork side of it for me was something that I got rid of really quickly because it was like draining.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, one of my first mentors said, if somebody can do it as well as you should probably delegate it out. And one of the mistakes that some people make is trying to do everything. It's like, if you're really good at the sales and the actual like in-person stuff or the big vision of like parties and, growing your team and all that stuff, you're probably not going to be good at paperwork. Very few people are good at marketing and accounting, right? And so it's really important to find the right people that can do that for you.
Kind of the last question for any potential consumer, anybody that's looking at buying or selling right now, what advice would you have for them when it comes to selecting an agent to help in today's day and age with what the market is at today? What advice would you have for a buyer, a home buyer or seller when it comes to selecting an agent? Because there's a lot of them, right? There's 28,000 agents. I think the stats are 25% of them will do one deal or less in the next 12 months, at least in Utah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different what kind of property you're buying. If you're buying for yourself, you want to find somebody that has a lot of time that's available. Because if you're looking for your own home, you're probably the one searching, utahrealestate.com. You're probably the one searching Zillow and all those different things. And so all you need is somebody that's available to go show you the homes and then somebody that can negotiate that for you. So there's a lot of people that are available for that. But if you're looking for like an investment property or if you need to sell your home, you need to check their track record. Like, so many people hire an agent and they're trying to find an investment home and that agent doesn't know shit about investing in real estate. My team, we've sold literally over 5,000 homes to investors between Tyler and I. And so, like, we just know what to look for, what not to. Like, right now, there's so many agents. We're selling investment properties in Utah the last 2 years, and we stopped. We stopped 2 years ago. We started sending everyone out of state because we saw the writing on the wall. Well, the latest report has come out. I mean, real estate in Utah is overpriced by probably 40 or 50%. So if you're not cash flowing, there's a good chance you're going to wear your ass on that. I learned that from experience. I went through the downturn in 05, 06, 07. Yeah. So when a lot of people were being greedy, like, you came to me about those edge homes and you're like, dude, you should buy some of these. And I looked at them like, hell no, they don't cash flow. They don't make any sense. And then all the people that were buying at the end got stuck with these homes they don't want. They're all bailing on them. And now you got all these spec homes sitting around. And at the end of the day, a lot of these buyer's agents didn't know why those weren't a good deal. Like, I have 400 investors right now as we sit here that are like, Jimmy, you tell me what to buy and I'll buy it. But I have those investors waiting because I would never sell them something I wouldn't buy myself. Yeah. So I have an endless supply of clients or buyers that trust me because they know I'd never sell them something I wouldn't buy myself. And I was buying those homes myself. When I started moving everybody to Florida, I made a fifth of what I was making on a sell in Utah. That was not something I was excited to do. If I was selling that many homes in Utah, I'd have made an extra $1 million. But that was where the opportunity was. And I bought 14 of them myself, along with selling.
Which you said you'll never sell anything that you can't buy, that you wouldn't buy yourself, right?
Yeah, I'm never going to sell somebody a house I wouldn't buy myself if they're buying it, like, because they're trusting me. The whole reason they're buying is because I'm saying it's a good investment property, right? And so, I just think it's important that you pick an agent that really understands the investing game. And I would just ask him, like, let me see your portfolio. I want to see which homes you buy. I want to see how much you cash flow on those homes. I want to see when you bought them. I want to see, give me the last 5 investors you sold homes to. I want to see what their experience was. Like, people just take an agent's word for it.
And you should be able to quantify that if you're on the other side, if you're the agent on the other side.
Oh, I can get you the information in 12 minutes.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty simple.
I'll have whatever legit checks you want. I'll have
100%.
whoever you want to verify.
I literally have a pro forma of every single house we've sold in the last couple of years, and I can send you that. And it breaks down not only where our projections were, but the realities. And every single one of those projections, we were conservative. And so we've actually outpaced our pro forma on, I swear, like every single house we've sold. And so, that's the difference between getting an expert agent versus just your random agent.
Somebody that's clear on their business, that is very clear on why you should work with them.
Yeah, and different markets require different expertise. So like the last year and a half before the market slowed down, it was never, in my opinion, it was never more important to have an agent that knew what the hell they were doing.
Yep.
Because if you're going up against me, you were going to lose.
Yep.
Because I knew the agent on the other end. I knew what it was going to take to get the deal done. I knew what conversation to have. I knew how to present the offer. I knew how to write up the offer. I usually knew the exact price the offer would need to be at to get it accepted. And that's what you were going up against. That's why people are like, I've put in 30 offers. I'm like, yeah, your agent's an idiot.
That's your agent's fault.
I was still averaging less than 2 offers per client.
Yeah, because every now and then you get a weirdo, right? They would just come in and throw in a stupid offer,
Yep.
and it's like, you can have it for that.
Yeah, I mean, but I was getting 10 times more deals under contract than other agents.
So what's the best, if somebody wanted to work with you, what's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
Yeah, for me, I tell everybody, follow me on Instagram. That's where I post everything I got going on. If I have speaking gigs, if I have, some videos that come out, a cool podcast, anything I'm doing with real estate, any investment opportunities, it all goes through my Instagram. That's Mr. Jimmy Rex is my Instagram. That's the best place. And reach out to me. I'd love to work with any of you, work with our team if you're looking to invest in real estate, whatever. We are the best at helping people buy investment properties. And I have 500 testimonials I can send you if you want. And, we're very boring, but we've learned how to do it the right way. I've been around long enough to see what's the right and the wrong way to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're the man. We appreciate you coming in.
Dude, thanks for having me, man. You're a stud.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, boo.